Hello, welcome to the Ubble and Adan webinar. We are very glad to host this event today, so online event. We will start directly the event. So thanks for coming today. We are very happy to be here. We are going to discuss about crypto and how they are going mainstream today in the environment and the compliance environment. We all know that cryptocurrencies have seen an amazing growth recently. They are looked by every regulatory body in Europe and even abroad. It's great news for the sector, but it also comes with more responsibilities and more regulation. We're going to discuss about that. The difficulty is still you need as companies to onboard user very smoothly. You are by design extremely international, and you need to comply with various regulatory regulations that are nationals. So how do you cope with that? And what are the differences that we see? And we are also going to discuss about the trends and especially regarding KYC. So we are extremely happy to receive today two persons from Adan. So I will let first Faustine present herself. And please, Faustine.
Thank you very much, Juliette, and thank you again for your invitation. So I'm Faustine Fleuret. I'm president at Adan, which is the association that gathered the professionals in the crypto sector that are established in France. So crypto asset service providers, tech providers, information providers, etc., etc. That is, out of today, about 70 members. And we were created in January 2020. Regulation of the crypto asset sector is a big hot topic for us, so we are really happy to speak about that today. And I'm with Sebastien, that is also working for Adan with me.
Hi everyone, I'm Sebastien. I'm head of communications at Adan, and I'm also the founder of a podcast called Epicenter, which is one of the most recognized podcasts in the crypto space. We've been active for 8 years now, and happy to talk about crypto and regulation today.
Thank you. So there's also myself. I'm Juliette Delanoë. I'm founder at Ubble. Previously, I used to work at Thales. So I'm a specialist of identity topics and especially regarding AML and KYC and also about eIDAS. Welcome, and we will continue. So first, we are going to discuss about the French example in terms of regulation, what is happening, and what has changed recently with cryptocurrency becoming mainstream and becoming more regulated. So we have so Faustine knows very well this topic because she has experience with AMF and through also the Adan role. So Faustine, could you please explain a little bit what has changed for crypto with the PSAN status and how it can be representative of what is happening everywhere in Europe, please.
Yes, sure, and that's very important finally, because when the topic of crypto assets first started to go mainstream, that was in 2017, that was the time when French regulators started to look at the topic and find a way to regulate first what we call ICO, that is the issuance of crypto assets, and then all other services that are provided on crypto assets. And for that, France is quite a precursor in the European Union. with this approach very early, so in 2016, 2017, and with the creation of a regulatory regime that I will try to explain very briefly, but you will have many details on the slides if you need, and I will be happy to answer your questions. So this is just a quick slide to show the global landscape of what has happened in France. Before the creation of this regulatory regime, we had many parliamentary missions on blockchain and crypto asset, which helped to make this topic adopted within a regulator, within the public authorities. That's why now our authorities have a great expertise of what are crypto assets. So after those missions, after many consultations of the financial place, the France decided to create an ad hoc hybrid regime for non-financial crypto assets. I have to precise that when you have a crypto asset that qualify as instrument, as financial instrument, it must comply with the European financial regulation. But France created a new legal object, which is the crypto asset, and decided to elevate new rules that are adapted to those assets. And now we have a regulation on several service providers that you can find on this slide. So those who safeguard your crypto assets, the crypto custodians, those who enable you to exchange crypto assets with legal money or other crypto assets, and many other services. If you are a bit familiar with the financial regulation, you will see that it's from the MiFID II regime, so it's very familiar with this financial regulation, so portfolio management, advice on crypto assets, etc., etc. And what was an innovation in this regulation is that there were both mandatory parts. So if you want to now to provide services for French customers, you need to comply with some rules, but you also have an optional part in this regulation, meaning that actors can comply with additional rules to get a visa, an agreement, so to be a bit more virtuous than others. But if they don't get this license, this optional license, they can provide the service in France. They are not prohibited to do that. So that was very new in the regulation in France. Recently, because this French regime is constantly moving, we had a deepening of the part that imposed to actors to comply with the European regulation in terms of anti-money laundering and terrorism financing. So now we have actors in France that we call PSANs that comply with this European regulation, but that they have also specific additional rules that they must comply with, and that traditional financial institutions, for example, must not. And those new rules are all related to the identification of the client. So identification now is a very hot topic for our members, our actors, because they must, at all stages of the entry into business with the client, in the transaction process, they almost always at any time need to identify their clients. So that's a very hot topic today in the regulatory news. So this is very quickly the French regime, so rules that are dedicated to our actors. Because at this time there is not yet a European regime for crypto asset service providers or issuers. But this is this regulation is being discussed currently at the level of European institutions, and we will be probably see in 2, 3, 4 years 2 new regimes for those actors. One regime that is called MiCA, that is quite similar with the French regime for crypto asset actors that I have just presented, and what we call a pilot regime that will help project holders that want to develop a project on financial instruments on blockchain to get some exemptions on the financial regulation that they must comply with, because there are some rules that cannot apply in the crypto universe. So this is in this slides very briefly some details on those two regimes. I don't think it's useful for me to give more, but the most important in that we will see in 2, 3, 4 years a unified regime at the European level for those crypto asset service providers. And where are we, France, in this European framework? We have the advantage to have this French regime that help us to be nearly already ready for this EU regulation, because both the MiCA and the pilot regime are inspired by the French work since 2016. So our actors are quite familiar with what will happen in few years at the European level. And regarding another topics, the digital euro, maybe you know that the European Central Bank is currently thinking about launching experimentations. But in France, this project was already engaged early in 2019, 2020. So we are quite. France has a comparative advantage on the regulatory stage regarding crypto assets. So that's a very good news for the development of the industry. But you'll see with Sebastien that we have other maybe stumbling blocks that make us a little bit optimistic than this. So thank you very much, and thank you, Juliette. I think I let you elaborate on those ID topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faustine. So if I understand well, what you said is that the French regulatory body has been ambitious, forward-thinking, and by including crypto assets and making them more mainstream, but also coming with some obligations that could also represent a threat for the business of French crypto assets, because it's always the same thing. If you are the first mover, it's good, but it also come with some risks. So the question is now, how can we comply easily and without damaging the business? That's the main question. Do you agree with what I said? It's an opportunity, but it needs to be executed correctly.
Sure. Because there is a need for regulation if you want the market to structure with the good principle, with the objectives of investor protection, financial stability. So regulation is absolutely crucial, but this regulation should be both adapted and proportionated to the crypto asset sector that is quite recent, that still need to mature. And so we need to find a balance between this protection of investors, the structuring of market with stability, and letting innovation develop and experiment. So that's a really hard balance. Even if we have the French regime in France for some years now, it is not a perfect regime. So there are still some things to improve, and actors have some difficulties sometimes to comply with this regime. But that's why we can be optimistic with the fact that they will be more ready for the European regime, yes, because they have the difficulties today with the French regime.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to build a competitive advantage at the European level. That's okay, great. So I'm going to comment a little bit on the more focused on the anti-money laundering topics, especially on the onboarding process, because as we know, cryptocurrencies, they need to fuel their growth, to onboard a lot of people, and they are in an international competition to do that, and they need to comply with rules, but they also need to satisfy the needs of their users. So let's focus on this block. So maybe you can move to the next slide, Faustine. Yes, so I'm mainly going to comment orally what is going on. So first of all, we are going to talk a little bit about the EDIS regulation. So EDIS, it's a European regulation that is focused on regulating trust services. Trust services, it's what builds trust online. So there are 9 trust services that are defined in the EDIS regulation. And they build trust, they allow to build a very good confidence that the user is who he is on 3 of them. So the first one is digital identity, which is to be issued by states and governments, but it's also possible for the private sector to issue those kind of digital identities. There is also electronic signatures that can have different kind of levels of trust. So advanced, qualified, which depends on the security level. So electronic signature is the second one, and we have also recommended letters, which is also a way to check the identity of the sender and the receiver. In those trust services, the user needs to prove who he is, and at one point he needs to enroll, onboard, and prove his identity. Identity proofing as such is not a trust service as defined by EDIS. It's part of different kind of services where you issue some kind of tokens that you can reuse afterwards. But identity proofing is seen as a block of other trust services. So this is the EDIS regulation. It's important for the anti-money laundering because they define concepts of identity and how it should manage and how it should be verified online at the EU level, and it's a regulation. So regulations are different from directives by EU Commission when they are issued, because regulations are more strict, they are more precise, and they give less rooms for interpretation. It's a good news because it means more standardization, and it means rules that are recognized more easily by other states. When you look at the Anti-Money Laundering Directive 5, for instance, so it's a directive, it gives more room for interpretation by countries, and they need to implement them and write their own interpretation of the law. This is why we have some difference between the different kind of countries. This is not the only reason, but it's also an explanation. EDIS impacts AML regulatory because it's a regulatory tool that countries can use when they implement AML, because in AML, you have this KYC concept where you need to verify the identity of user, and EDIS is here, it's recognized, and it's a good tool that countries have used. Not all of them, but many of them. So it's what France did. When they implemented AML D4 and also LML D5, ACPR in France decided to use the EDIS regulation in order to regulate digital onboardings for financial institutions, and now it's also, of course, impact crypto companies. This is the what we call the complementary measure. So basically, you can do a digital signature it's EDIS. You can use a digital identity, it's EDIS. You can use a recommended letter, it's also EDIS. In France, you can also use payments to do that, but new rules and how to reinforce identity has appeared and is following the EDIS regulation. There is also a change that has been made by France, and they have decided to create a kind of new trust service, and France is the first one to do it in Europe, which is called PVID, for Prestataire de Vérification d'Identité à Distance. So it means basically identity proofing provider. And they have decided to take this identity verification block and to regulate it specifically because they judge it's an important block and it's used often as a standalone service and it deserves specific regulation. We believe it's a very good news. So ANSSI has written a standard for that, and France has decided to regulate that. You find in other countries in Europe very similar trends if you look carefully. In Germany, electronic signature can be used to onboard users. You have also specifications regarding how to verify the identity online of people that has been written by BaFin, and that can be that is quite that we can compare to what France has done for the PVID standard, so identity proofing provider. The only difference is that the video identification circular that you can find in Germany, it's been written by AML, by the BaFin. It's not the eIDAS specialists in Germany that have written those rules. So it's maybe this is going to evaluate. It's a choice that they have made. We have also the same trend in Spain, where you can use electronic signature and trust services, and you also have a circular, the video identification, where you have also some kind of process that has been again written by the AML body, which is the CEPLAC. So we see that we have a strong trend towards eIDAS. We have identity proofing that is not regulated as such and with very different rules between countries because it's not regulated as part of eIDAS. France has made a move to regulate it as such with a standard as part of eIDAS. And they have made clear links between them, and this is also what European Commission is doing because they are pushing for standardization of identity proofing at the EU level with EU standards that are currently discussed. So we are seeing a strong convergence towards identity proofing regulation and rules that we hope are going to apply in Europe. Maybe I'm going to say a last word, is that there is also a very clear trend that we can see, is that in every country that I have cited, video KYC is starting to impose everywhere. So in France, ANSSI has been very clear, so they are requesting video on the ID and on the face when the user is verifying his identity. They are also requesting what we call hybrid models, so AI, but also identity experts that verify the identity of user. This is the same trend in Germany with video chat. So we have video and we have operators that verify the identity. And this is the same thing again in Spain. With video KYC that is allowed, but also with operators that need to review those video. It's the same in Italy, it's also the same in Switzerland, and also in Austria. So we are starting to see convergence, standardization, both for the AML and for eIDAS, towards video KYC and hybrid models. And this is going to impact, of course, financial institutions as part of their AML obligation for KYC. So I'm done. I'm happy to receive questions afterwards. I'm very interested to hear what Sebastien has to say regarding the future of cryptos and what we can dream about for the future. So I let the floor to you, Sebastien, so you can explain what are the trends that you see.
Thanks, Juliette. Yeah, so I mean, from our point of view at Adan, we feel that a compliant crypto sector is a thriving crypto sector, and I think that what we've taken away from Faustine and Juliette's presentations is that we are heading towards a regulated crypto sector in Europe, and indeed, we'll see later, perhaps even in the US and other jurisdictions, and that there are benefits to this compliance. There are also risks, and this is what I'd like to talk about today. So first, in terms of benefits, I think just generally, for as long as I've been in crypto, there's been this notion that compliance improves the credibility of the industry. And I think you can see that just through much of the discourse that happens around crypto. A lot of that has changed. If you paid attention to crypto 5 or 6 years ago, conversations were very different. Some of those conversations are still there. There are still conversations and sort of preconceived notions around terrorist financing and things like that we need to demystify. But there is a general improved credibility, and we've seen that through institutional investors and traditional finance also coming into crypto, not only investing in projects, but investing in crypto and purchasing crypto and having crypto on their balance sheets. It also improves the relationships. What we hope that it will improve the relationships with traditional financial institutions, and this is specifically, I'm speaking specifically of France, because as Faustine mentioned, there is a history of a complex relationship between the crypto sector, the French crypto sector, and traditional finance. We published a report on this a couple of months ago, which you can find on our website, which details the experience and the sort of complications that crypto sector actors have when dealing with traditional financial institutions, such as opening bank accounts and things like that. And what we hope is that compliance will help build and grow the crypto sector just generally, when we feel that the crypto sector and decentralized finance represents the future of the financial market. And by being compliant and by playing by the rules, crypto can, in fact, get a lot of the market share of traditional finance that traditional finance has on the global financial ecosystem, and also in terms of back-end infrastructure and things like that. In terms of risks, Faustine did mention a few of the risks, but one of the major risks that we see with the startups that are members of Adan is just this overburdening of companies that don't have resources to deal with heavy compliance regulation, human resources, but also financial and legal compliance resources. So being compliant costs money, and for companies that are at the seed stage or even Series A, perhaps, it is a burden that is sometimes difficult to comply with. We've also seen cases in France where it has actually hampered business development. So through the licensing process, the PSAN, the VASP licensing process, companies had to stop operation. We've also seen companies, unfortunately, in the last couple of months, shut down. Whether or not that was a direct consequence of the licensing process remains to be determined. But there has been, from what our members have told us, a general hampering of their business through the licensing process. And I think here, in the context of this webinar, one of the main points is user experience. And Ubble offers a fantastic solution for improving user experience when onboarding and doing KYC. And this is one of the risks that we're trying to mitigate, is to decrease generally just the friction when onboarding new customers. And that has tremendous impacts, especially in current market conditions, where markets can be quite volatile. There's a bull run, and perhaps investors want to jump in at the right time. And if they haven't performed KYC, and if they need to start onboarding exchanges, there is a risk that they might miss some of that market activity. And we've seen in the crypto space that there is sort of this winner takes all dynamic, which happens where very large actors are getting many new customers that are onboarding into the crypto space. And this is a risk, of course, for smaller players, which perhaps don't have all of the user experience sort of set up around AML KYC. So what can be improved with the French crypto framework? And after I'll speak about MiCA. Generally we think that there needs to be a better understanding of crypto assets, of the DeFi ecosystem generally, and this is in part the work that we do at Adan, is educating policymakers and authorities. There remains persistently these sort of negative connotations, negative optics around crypto, the use of crypto for money laundering, terrorist financing, buying drugs, things like this. Several studies have come out to show that the proportion of illegal activity happening on crypto is actually quite low. Also in France, as I mentioned, we have limited access to bank accounts for crypto companies. This is something that Adan is actively working with, trying to build relationships with banking sector actors and the French Banking Federation. One of the major challenges that crypto companies have seen is the inability to access digital marketing channels, such as Google AdWords and other paid advertising. And there's just sort of this legal uncertainty around, specifically around MiCA and the evolution of this crypto regulation. So moving now to MiCA, many of the challenges and shortcomings are the same. Of course, there are the challenges to DeFi and other decentralized use cases. MiCA, as it's currently written, could potentially ban certain use cases that are fundamental to the functioning of DeFi, and we feel that these regulations should be more proportional. There's a risk also to public blockchain infrastructure, as MiCA and the pilot regime are heavily weighted towards proprietary and private blockchain technology, as we feel that public blockchains are much more adept to decentralized use cases, which is logical. Some of these rules are also, disproportionate versus the risk. We feel that some of these regulations try to address risks that don't exist or that don't yet exist. And if we move to the next slide, there are also unequal opportunities for newcomers in the ecosystem. So we feel that the MiCA proposal heavily favors incumbent actors and regulated financial institutions as opposed to the crypto ecosystem as it is. And financially, there are a number of operational issues related to this regulation, like the necessity to settle all transactions on the blockchain, which of course, as we know, is not necessarily relevant or possible in all cases. So to summarize, I think that the proposals that we have in front of us are welcome proposals to regulate the crypto industry, because they will allow us to gain more credibility, facilitate relationships with traditional financial institutions, etc., grow the crypto sector. But there needs to be a review of these regulations so that they are proportionate, so that they can allow innovation to continue to occur, which I think is really where most of the interest in crypto comes from, is from this ability to innovate and think of new ways to build the financial infrastructure.
Thank you, Sebastien. Thank you very much for this expertise and perspective, and thank you also to Adan for making proposition and interacting with regulatory body, also to defend the interest of the actors that you represent. On our side, we do the same also on the eIDAS regulation, and I believe everybody is working on the same way. So we have more standardization and at the EU level to build a true international champions. So all the rules applies to the to all the actors, newcomer, incumbents, but also every national actors. This is going to build a great market of EU crypto assets that we feel that is growing extremely fast, and it's very good news. So you can ask questions. Please use the chat, so we will answer to all questions. If we don't have time during the live, we will come back to you with all the answers to the questions that we ask, even if we have to do research. So please send your questions. So I would like to also say that innovation is coming. There is a lot of investments that are put on the table to build solutions that are both compliant, secured, that are in line with the standards that we see are happening, and that are extremely user-friendly, and that strive to onboard your user fast and at scale, because of the bull run, there are things that needs to be taken into account in terms of quantities and etc. But those technologies are there. They are currently certified, especially in France, but it's also coming in Europe. And I believe the future will be very light for your sector. So we are going to move to maybe Faustine, you have a Finnish words regarding AML-FT and what you see is coming. I let you the floor to conclude on that, which is the future of the regulation in Europe.
Yes, that's the future, but there is a very hot present news about the AML-CFT framework. First, because we have some work at the FATF level that is drafting new guidance to adapt them to the crypto sector. They were under consultation in April, and we have some fairs about some orientations that are taken currently by the FATF. The objective for sure is to prevent from the risk of AML-FT, but we see that many propositions are not adapted, not proportionated to the crypto sector, and especially to the very innovative sector, I would say, like decentralized finance that Sebastien talked about earlier. So we do look at what will happen because that was under consultation. So we do look at what will be those guidelines when they will be published in their final version, probably around September. Currently, in France, we are under the evaluation of the FATF too. So the FATF is currently visiting both public actors and the private actors to evaluate if the French AML-CFT framework, is robust, if actors are complying with, and so that is a very big moment for France, because those evaluations happens every 10 years. And what's new with the previous evaluation is that we have this regime for crypto asset sector that where crypto assets actors must comply with this AML-CFT framework. So this will be deeply evaluated by the FATF. And to conclude on that, we are also looking for the revision of the AML-CFT framework at the EU level. So it should be also published in the coming months, but we don't really know about. And what will be new with the previous one is that we anticipate that all crypto actors will now be in the scope of this EU regulation. So many things that we anticipate, many things that we are looking at. So there will be, I think, a great update to do very soon about that.
Thank you, Faustine. You said regulation, so I heard that AML6 might be a regulation, not a directive, which is a big change, by the way, because as I said, directive and regulation are quite different. Directive provides directions that with quite a lot of room for interpretation at the national level. Regulation, it's another thing, and it goes towards much more standardization. So did you hear the same thing?
Yes, I heard the same thing. I don't know if it will be only a regulation or maybe both a regulation or a directive, but I think it is part of the global trend at the EU level that takes more and more regulation rather than directive, because there were many divergent approach in the way to translate in national laws some regulations. In my experience, I know MiFID II regulation quite well, and this is there are some gaps around among state members on the way to interpret those texts. So I think it is about the global trend of EU regulations. There will be more regulation, I think, than directive from now.
Yes, and spoiler, we should find eIDAS somewhere for KYC. I think there is no doubt about that neither. Okay, so thank you so much. We will now look at your questions. So it's still time to send those. So I'm going there. So we have many questions. Thank you. So we have a question about UK-based crypto exchange. Can they onboard French customers, advertise? How does it work?
There are several questions that are about the same thematics. That is the foreign actors, how they are in this French regime and what they can do. So when actually you must comply with the French regime, even if you're foreign actors, if you provide your services to French customers, or as a foreign actor, you are established in France. And that's related to another question that asked, there were some actors that were put on the blacklist of the IMF. It's because if you, as a foreign actor, want to advertise to French customer, want to provide, and you do the promotion of your services that you are provided to the French actors, this is forbidden if you are not regulated with the IMF and the ACPR. So that's why we saw some actors on this blacklist, and that's why foreign actors have to look at the French regime, because if they want to address the French markets, they must comply with.
Okay. Thank you, Faustine, for this clear answer. We have another question regarding, must VideoKYC be carried out in real time, or can it be reviewed at a later time for operational reasons? So basically for VideoKYC and with human intervention, which we called hybrid models, you have two different kinds of ways to do it. Synchronous, mainly video chat, that you can find in Germany, Austria, etc. And you have also asynchronous models. So basically the user records videos using a smartphone, and those videos are reviewed afterwards. What we see is that this model is quite optimized in terms of human intervention, because during capture, the user is completely guided by the AI, and there is no human, he's talking to no one, but still is helped by algorithm. And the videos are reviewed afterwards by human operators. It can take very few minutes, so it can be very fast. So you can reach synchronous user journeys because you will get the final answer, for instance, in 5 minutes. If you are in less a rush, then you can wait a little bit more. It depends, 2 hours, 3 hours. You can play a lot with the service level agreements, basically, what is the timing to answer the question. There is another question, is it a bottleneck? It can be. You need to choose your provider. They need to be able to scale. Asynchronous model are you can play much more especially with the timing. So it can the human intervention, it's quite small because they are not present in capture. It's high technology most of the time. So humans are truly help. So they can be very fast in validating what they call identification. So 30 seconds can be enough, and those models can scale much more, and you need to choose carefully your provider. There is a question regarding payment. Also, you mentioned you can use payments for eIDAS purposes. How does this operate? So payments are not in the eIDAS regulation. eIDAS regulation, it's only about identity, basically, qualified signature and recommended letter. Payments, it's an option that is offered in the French AML regulation as of today. So it has nothing to do with eIDAS, but it's allowed by the AML regulation. What we understand is that it's more an historical measure because you have trusted once, I don't know, Société Générale, I give a dumb example, to onboard a user, then you can retrust this same account with a simple authentication. The only thing is that you have quite a lot of risks of usurpation, of taking control of the account in the middle. So it's quite far from the security requirements that you will find in eIDAS, especially that in eIDAS you need to onboard people every 2 to 3 years. So this is not necessarily the case when you have opened a bot account 20 years ago. But so in terms of security, it's quite different, but still it's offered. But it's purely AML, and the question is it going to remain after AML Regulation 6? It's a question. Okay. Do you see questions, Sebastien and Faustine? You can take questions if you find them interesting. Yes?
I see the last question that is about that of Laetitia. Could you consider that a foreign actor in targeting European market and therefore French markets, if they propose payments or deposits in euro to their customer? Just for to clarify whether a foreign actor provides services to the French public, there is a list of criteria that were established by the IMF that you can find on their website in a position document dedicated to the PSAN regime. So they look at this list of criteria and they pick up, I think, at least 2, but I'm not sure. And based on those criteria, they can establish if you target the French market. So that's very fun. It doesn't mean that if you target the European market, you will target the French market. This is much more precise. For example, if you have a website in .fr and it's written in French, this can be a criteria that is evaluated by the authority. So if you are interested in that, just look at this position of the IMF where you have all those criteria.
Okay. I think we have answered to most of the questions. So I will thank everybody, especially Sebastien and Faustine, for coming today and sharing their expertise regarding this topic. I will thank also everybody for joining and listening to what we have to say, and also for asking questions. We are, of course, available if you have questions afterwards, and we would be happy to talk more about how we can help grow crypto exchange in Europe and with the best user experience. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Juliette. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. That's a great end word. Thank you very much. And if you have any other question, if Juliette, don't hesitate to give them to us lately. And yeah, thank you for your attention today.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.